So it's about to be the start of a new year, 2026, or maybe you're watching this when it already is 2026. And as somebody who has edited 12 books of Neville Goddard's teachings and written multiple books about Neville and made hundreds of videos about the law of assumption, frankly, someone who's probably made more original commentary about Neville and his approach than just about anybody on YouTube, I want to share with you what I think will help you in 2026 actually integrate and apply his ideas in a way that feels fulfilling. Because the way Neville and the law of assumption is explained to you online, this is the dirty secret, is not going to feel very fulfilling for most of you by the end of 2026. For the majority of you, unfortunately, unless you start to appreciate more the subtlety and the nuance of what Neville was getting at, you're probably going to have forgotten all about Neville Goddard and the law of assumption by the end of 2026, or feel really confused as to what you're doing with it. Because you're going to hear all these success stories online of people manifesting these miraculous things and wondering, why am I not able to do this? You're going to be misled by this social media frenzy about his teachings, which is mainly totally misinterpreted, kind of sensationalistic interpretations of what Neville was talking about. And you're probably going to feel let down by the whole thing. And also, unfortunately, you're probably going to shame yourself unless you realize this one main thing, which very few people in this space realize. And that is that our imagination is dynamic. The way Neville was talking about imagination is not a catchphrase or something conceptual. It is something you must live with your whole mind and body. And that, my friends, is where most teachers talking about Neville and the law of assumption fail you miserably. Because they don't acknowledge how difficult it can be to actually assume what you want, to feel what you want. When you feel heartbroken, scared, afraid, full of shame, regret, etc. The good news is all of that's okay to have those feelings. What we have to do is learn how to work with those feelings and have our imagination effectively integrate those feelings so we no longer are beating ourselves up for having them. That's the real secret to the law of assumption that people don't really ever discuss on YouTube. And even Neville himself really didn't explain it that well. Your imagination is dynamic. And if you only understand these ideas conceptually, or mainly understand them conceptually, like concepts, like everyone as you pushed out, live in the end, and assume something until it hardens into fact. If you only have those kind of theories or ideas conceptually understood and don't actually live that way in some significant manner, then the ideas really are not going to be sustainable for you. And basically everybody has only a conceptual appreciation of these ideas, including me. Conceptually, it's very easy to understand some of this stuff. And then you can be, intellectual about it. And some of it might be a little bit more difficult to understand. But still, conceptually, it's not that difficult if you're into these ideas. You go on Reddit, all these people conceptually sound brilliant. What Papa Bear Tim is saying is, I don't give a fuck about how brilliant and conceptual you sound. What's important is doing it. And that means being dynamically open and gentle with yourself and what you are, which is your imagination. You are imagining no matter what. You are imagining no matter what. And that is not something that's like conceptual. That's what's going on right now. What is happening right now? Unless you start to deal with the fact that you're always imagining, and a lot of the stuff you're imagining, you probably do not, quote unquote, want to be imagining. You probably have a lot of negative thoughts, a lot of negative feelings. Unless you actually acknowledge that, you're not going to really get anywhere fulfilling, like I said, long-term with these ideas, and by the end of 2026, you'll probably feel burnt out. But if you grab the bull by the horn, so to speak, and actually start looking at your imagination with all of its warts and follies and all of its problems, quote unquote problems, well, then you'll actually be serious about practicing the law of assumption. You'll actually be serious about working with your imagination. And that is what is life-changing. That is what is life-changing. But it's not about something out there, and your externals will change if you do this for long enough. But it's not about that. It's about what happens in here. When all of a sudden I start looking at myself as a more loving, compassionate, okay person. When all of a sudden I stop reacting in the same way I always have to family members or my friends or my coworkers, or to what I read in the news, or to my body. It's starting to notice how I react to things, what my default imaginings are, and start working with them in a more gentle, malleable, maybe playful, forgiving way. This is real law of assumption stuff. That's law of assumption 2.0 for most of you, because you've never heard anybody talk about it the way I'm talking about it right now. This is what Neville was pointing at. This is what all the great New Thought, law of assumption, law of attraction type of teachers are basically pointing at, is working with what's in here. But most of us, when we get into these ideas, we get very excited about the ideas, and we think it's going to work easily or quite simply, and then it doesn't, and we feel kind of lost. And we think, oh, I'm doing something wrong. And I'm here to tell you, you're not doing anything wrong except not giving yourself credit that this is your own wonderful human imagination that you get to work with, and you're okay right now. And that you can learn to be more loving and gentle with yourself. And by doing that, the law of assumption will take root in your life in a positive way in 2026. You can make that happen. And I hope you do. Now let's go into the silence.